It's match day in the Champions League as Arsenal take on Inter Milan with the hope of getting back to winning ways in a big way in the San Siro. This is the Arsenal News Show. Hello and welcome to the Gooner Talk. Back again with you guys and girls for another episode of what is the Arsenal News Show. Joining you every single morning at 8 a.m. UK time. Thank you as always for tuning in and joining me. Apologies for the slight late start this morning. I just had something to do at 8 o'clock. So apologies for that slightly later usual start. But thank you for sticking with us in the chat box. Thank you for chilling with us. I really appreciate it. And I'm certainly looking forward to tonight's game in the San Siro. It's a really exciting fixture, not one that comes up too often. Arsenal have only played Inter Milan in a competitive sense twice, which is, of course, back in the Invincibles 03-04 season. They suffered one of their few defeats of that campaign in all competitions. Away from home, though, they did manage to win 5-1, a scoreline that if Arsenal were to match tonight, it would be a significant statement of intent and a statement that Arsenal are back and hopefully looking to get things back on track after a difficult couple of weeks. Good morning to those joining us in the chat box. I really appreciate your time. As always, Arasilki, Louis, Dave, Rejected Billionaire, Rich, Matt G, Damien. We've got Shiv and Barry and Wendy and Knowledge. Sorry, I've still got this cough that you may notice throughout the show. Glenn, Amira, Tom, Terry. Good morning to all of you. And thank you for joining in. It is incredibly appreciated. And I hope that you're having a great day and will continue to do so for the rest of the week and forwards. Right, let's jump to today's stories, shall we? We start with last night's Champions League results, which of course contained quite the surprising one, which was Sporting winning 4-1 at home against Manchester City, courtesy of a Viktor Gyokeres hat-trick. He has passed, I think, what many would describe as the final test to convince anyone that indeed he could be, should be, will be on a target of Arsenal's in the forthcoming windows. He's a player, of course, we know Arsenal, and I know for sure have had their eyes on in the past. And Arsenal will, of course, turn up at Lisbon later on this year to play against the likes of Gyokeres. And that is going to be one hell of a tough game. And it'll be one hell of a test for our defenders to take on the Swedish centre forward. But yes, where will he end up? Will it be Arsenal? Will he be following Ruben Amorim to Manchester United? I don't know. There's been no suggestions that that's going to be the case yet. He's very much turned down any suggestions of following his current manager to his new club. So, yeah, let's wait and see what happens in the future. Moving, of course, to Martin Odegaard, who has trained and travelled with the squad to Milan in what is a massive boost to the team. Martin Odegaard, of course, in the squad. Whether he makes the matchday squad, still yet to be fully confirmed. We do know, though, that he has travelled and that he is part of the team that is there, and that would indicate that you would imagine in some way, shape or form that we will see him either on the bench or maybe even as a substitute. It'd be highly shocking to see him as a starter, but never say never. The Norwegian has had a tendency to surprise and shock us in the past as well. But Martin Odegaard, sin travelling with the squad, which is a really, really big boost to the team. Now, Mikel Arteta did face the press in which he was asked, of course, about Martin Odegaard and asked about the latest situation regarding his captain. He says, the positive news is it's great to have Martin back. Obviously, he's trained with us for the first time, a full session today. He felt good. It's a bit earlier than we expected, but he wanted to be with the team. So we'll decide tomorrow whether to use him. But at least it's a big step that he has travelled with us and is part of the squad. Now, there was, of course, some frustrating news surrounding team news, which is that Declan Rice has not travelled. And on Declan Rice, Arteta said, unfortunately, he has picked up an injury against Newcastle. He was able to finish the game, but he wasn't feeling good in the last few days. So we have to assess him on Thursday to understand whether he will be fit or not for the weekend. So no Declan Rice tonight with the team, which is obviously a big, big blow to the squad's quality. But we do have depth in the midfield. We have Partey, we have Jorginho, we have Mikel Merino. I imagine it will be a midfield that, of course, starts with Thomas Partey in that defensive midfield position that Rice has been occupying. So in terms of depth, we have certainly got that. But the big news, of course, this week has been surrounded about Edu and Edu resigning from his position as sporting director. And naturally, that led to questions being directed at Mikel Arteta about the Brazilian leaving his post. And Arteta said everything happened very quickly. Obviously, I loved working with him. I really enjoyed being alongside him on this incredible journey. From day one, we've been together. First of all, I'm very grateful personally for everything he's done for me and for the amazing work he's done for the football club. I think we both had this special chemistry working together. We really both enjoyed our roles and working together, and I'm very blessed he's been part of my life in such a beautiful place that I am right now, managing this amazing club, and he's been a massive part of that. He's got an amazing opportunity now to do something else in a different role, and he believes it's the right professional move for him. We have to respect that, and from the bottom of my heart, everybody really feels that we want the best for him. He was asked about what he would say to supporters if they have concerns about Edu's departure, and he says the plan and vision that starts with ownership is very clear and very ambitious. We are going to continue. We have a very strong leadership team with an unbelievable know-how, real passion, and great feeling for the football club. We are not going to stop where we are at the moment. Across the club, there is excitement, passion, and understanding of where we want to take this journey remains intact. That means opportunities for somebody else to come in to fill that role. And there are people that Edu has brought as well alongside him on this journey, which are always very important. And we move on. We say thank you, and we have to move on because that is the reality of the industry. So there you go. That is, of course, what he said about the latest on Edu. He was asked about the supporters, kind of the message to supporters after Edu leaving the defeat. And he says, in moments when you have a defeat or two and certain news that nobody expects, like we've always done, we stick together with positive energy and move forward. This is part of football, and we have to be very strong. And that's what we've done. We've come a long way with that. So let's stick together. So yes, that is the reality. That is where we are at. That is Arteta's view. But there is another side note to the story. In yesterday's show, of course, a lot of the comments that we had in the chat box focused around the wages that Edu has been offered. And people were obviously using that as something of an explainer for why Edu's decision makes sense. The fact that, according to the Independent, that he had been offered more than treble his earnings by the Marinakis group. And it seemingly is that he was kind of offered that amount of money that people feel was impossible for him to turn down. However, Sammy Motbell of the Mail, who broke the story over on Monday morning, has then since revealed that Arsenal made a counter offer, which was in kind of comparison and on similar terms to what the Marinakis group had offered to Edu. So a really interesting side note to this story. It is considered that the main attraction is the global kind of position and the role itself that Edu is going to be gaining from that new role that he goes into. I still have my criticisms of this. I've been very open and honest about how I feel about this. And I do think he's left Arsenal's project that he started with Arteta very much half-baked and only a year on from him talking about it being halfway through. Yes, of course, in terms of a job-wise, it is a massive opportunity for him. And I wish him all the best, but I am critical of the decision, of course, to leave Arsenal in the position that he has left it in. But I sincerely hope that we find somebody to replace him who can do an even better job, which is going to be very, very difficult because, as everybody should recognise, the work that has been done to put Arsenal into the position it is now from the point of which he was appointed in 2019 has taken Arsenal a hell of a long way in terms of our squad, in terms of our competitivity, in terms of our ability to renew player contracts, and of course our ability also to sell better, which was achieved more so in the last year in the window, which had effectively net zero summer, setting up potentially an opportunity in January and certainly opportunities in 2025. But that is the latest stories. We'll go to part 2 and your questions now, right after this. Okay, this is part 2 of the show. We jump into the chat box and we tackle as many of your questions as we can for as much as we can for as long as my voice decides to hold out this morning. Thank you, as always, for your continued support on the channel. If you could drop a like and subscribe if you're new around here with those notifications turned on, that would be very much appreciated. If you use a little capital Q, it does help those questions stand out in the chat so I can tackle them to the best of my ability. So please do that. Black Magic says, hi, in the next round of the Champions League, will the 8 automatic qualifiers be paired up to face the 8 qualifiers, or is it an open lottery between all 16 qualifiers? I believe that they will be, the 8 automatic qualifiers will face the 8 playoff winners from the knockout round of the competition. So yes, that is my expectation. I think they are seeded. Teams are therefore seeded when you go through to the knockout rounds, which means that teams that finish higher up the table are more likely to play teams that finish lower down the table. And as you get towards the end of the competition, it'll be the teams that finish the highest up in the league phase facing one another towards the end, is my understanding of how it works. Oliver says, hi, Tom. First time catching the live show. Do you think Nwaneri will start today? Of course, if you want to go back and watch our preview show, which we did yesterday with Garrett, please feel free to do that. All of the discussion around in selection lineups. I don't know if he will start today. I hope that he does. I think Trossard has been disappointing of late in that number 10 role. And I think that Nwaneri has showed more, but in a very big game, in a very difficult game, in a very challenging fixture. We do know that Mikel Arteta does tend to err on the side of caution at times, but maybe he will surprise us. Darius says, what are your thoughts on the UCL results from last night? Yeah, as we touched upon at the start, the Sporting result was exceptionally surprising, but in some ways more clarification about how good Viktor Gyokeres is. AC Milan winning at Real Madrid. They are really having some struggles at the moment, are Real Madrid. They've been battered by Barcelona. They've been beaten by Milan. They have lost other games. They're sitting 17th, I think, at the moment before the teams play tonight in the league phase of the competition. They will, of course, progress, but their chances of finishing in the top 8 are considerably hampered at this point. We also saw Dinamo Zagreb, who Arsenal have to play, beat Slovan Bratislava 4-1. We saw PSV smash Girona, another side that we have to play. Those, you know, for Arteta's critics that were saying that Michel should be considered, the Girona manager, has certainly not fallen to looking too well on them. Celtic with a brilliant result against RB Leipzig. Fantastic result for them. Dortmund getting their winning run continuing, of course. They were battered by Real Madrid in the previous round, but they have had a very good start to the campaign. Juve drawing away at Lille. Lille have been very good as well. And we've got some very interesting results to look forward to tonight, including Arsenal's game against Inter. But you've got Barcelona at Red Star. You've got Stuttgart hosting Atalanta. PSG, Atletico Madrid. Club Brugge hosting Aston Villa. So some very interesting games tonight indeed. Samson says, hi, Tom. Are you liking the new Champions League format? I am not as much as I thought I would. I was intrigued by it. I was in a way excited for it because it was happening, you know, no matter what your opinions are on it changing. And group games were, you know, dull at times, you know, in any of the European competitions. But I've been to all of Arsenal's home Champions League games so far this season. And the games against PSG, the game against Shakhtar Donetsk, the atmospheres have been timid, dull. The performances have been affected, I think, in some ways by that. And I just think there's a sense of there's no jeopardy right now. The likelihood is you will progress at least to the last 32 before playing in that playoff round. And of course, the top 8 teams will move straight through to the last 16. But I just think that this league phase has taken some of the edge out of the first stage of the competition, while of course adding extra games to it as well. CJ Dan, by the way, Dan, you've not sent me any of the evidence you brought up in yesterday's show about the reverse racism, which I did do a little bit of looking into, and reverse racism sounds like the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard in my life, and it cannot exist. It's literally, it's what's the words when you like it's a double negative, like it cannot exist. So please do send me the evidence that you're talking about, because you didn't send me anything yesterday, Dan, at all. Gyokeres looked kind of slow from the few minutes of Sporting I saw yesterday. I mean, if that's what we're going off of, it just needing speed. I mean, the goal that he scored required great amount of speed and pace to get to the position that he got into. Dan says it wasn't me. Who was it? Was it Was CJ? Who was it then? Who was it? Was it not Dan? Who was it? Let me scroll up in the chat. It was someone. Who was it? It's SJ Chan. It might be SJ Chan rather than CJ Dan. SJ Chan. It might be you, mate. It might be you. But it's one of you two. Coming Gooner says I wasn't convinced about Gyokeres because of the league he plays, but he just answered that question against the best team in the Premier League. I think that's where we're at. Hayla says, Tom, do you see Man City in a bigger mess than Arsenal at the moment, being slaughtered in Portugal? And of course, they've lost their last three games. Have Man City now? Arsenal haven't done that. I'm just pointing that out. So it's not all sunshine and roses elsewhere either. Dan says, I've got another Gibbs and Chamberlain moment in the chat box. CJ Dan and SJ Chan. You will forgive me, I'm sure. Carl says, would you choose Gyokeres over Isak as he's roving? He can cope and is cheaper with his release clause as well. Either of those two would be great. Either of those two would be great additions, I think, to the Arsenal team next season. So if it's about money, and of course, if Arsenal can't go all the way to get Isak, Gyokeres is a fantastic alternative. And for many, he might not even be an alternative. He might be the primary option for many people as well. Gary says, Gyokeres looked anything but slow. He's quick off feet and mind as well. Jasper says, if this is a net zero summer leads us to falling out of the top four, was it a big mistake? It wasn't necessarily the case of it was a net zero plan all the way. Arsenal sold Ramsdale, they sold Nketiah in the last 48 hours of the window. So half of that money that they made effectively, or just over half the money they made in the summer, came in the last 48 hours of the window. So that is that, I think, from the perspective of kind of that side of things is why it's not a mistake in the sense of that. It's just because the money that we could have invested came in late and Arsenal couldn't respond quick enough to find a significant acquisition in those last 48 hours. Let's go to Mark, who says, on the right, Saka always has an overlapping FB and attacking midfielder close by. Martinelli seems to be isolated when he attacks down the left flank. What's the fix? I guess it's to get the midfielder to push up. Support is to get the fullback in there into those positions as well. Gary says, I don't think that we will get Gyokeres. I think that he will end up at United. Anthony says, I told you about Gyokeres, didn't I? Said that he's would bang again, but people want to come with their own notions about him, that he can go toe-to-toe with Haaland. You weren't the only one, Anthony. Loads of people have said, that fantastic campaign. I've written plenty of articles surrounding Gyokeres and his season last year. You can understand perhaps why there was some hesitation from clubs that they weren't necessarily going to go in after one season and they wanted to see more evidence. Every club did. And, he's now on the books of, he's now on the radar of all clubs, of course. But there was absolutely no way that was going to be the case. North London Forever says, Tom, I don't like this new format with the Champions League. I prefer the old one. The old format was more exciting. Do you think that we can have any chance of signing Gyokeres? There's a chance. There's always a chance. So let's wait and see. Harry John says, Arsenal won't make the top four this season. The Premier League is too competitive. I guess we will have to wait and see, but they're going to need to turn their form around considerably in order to make it. RM says, Gyokeres reeks of Lacazette. Scuffed first goal and two penalties. Scuffed first goal. Oh, RM, how naive. Go back and watch that finish. It's a very, very typical finish for Gyokeres where you did the little dink over the keeper. It's completely by design. Cross Jonky says, Gyokeres looks the better bet. Should go and get him. I think we'll rue that mistake. His stock at the moment is mega. Mars Cannon says, well, either January or the summer, I'd be happy with Isak, but Gyokeres is now my first choice. Earl says we have to meet the release clause in January. I don't know if there is a release clause in January. We know there's one in summer windows, but we don't know why. We don't know if it indeed exists in other transfer windows. From his gunner says top tier physicality, but there's something missing about him. I don't know. Well, if you don't know what it is, what is it? What's missing from him right now? What answer do we have to that question? If something is missing in what he's doing, but you don't know what it is, how can you say it? You know, it's that thing. You know, why don't we have that answer? Rowan says, now the big question: Isak or Gyökeres? If we could go for either or, it seems to be. Maybe we do a poll. Do I put a poll in the chat? Let's. I feel like recency bias may affect this. Of course, I say that Isak, of course, just scored against Arsenal, so that's worth picking out. So, who would you sign? Money, no object. So forget the financial side of things. Isak or Gyökeres? Your choice. Oh, I'll put add option and I'll put other, and then you can comment with your other as well. So there you go. There's the poll live in the chat right now. So let us know what you're thinking as well. Let's go to CJ, who says, I hope United get Gyökeres. We need someone quicker. We should look elsewhere rather than get Isak or go to Madrid and try to get Rodrigo. G says, why would the Kroenkes trust Arteta with another 100 million when he's already signed Jesus and Havertz as centre forwards? Probably because those two signings have contributed to Arsenal rising up to being established title challengers again. You know, for all of people's criticisms about Jesus and Havertz continually, they keep ignoring the fact that both of those signings contributed to Arsenal moving that way, not that way, or these ways, that way. It's still something that people seem to struggle with, and I cannot ever get my head around it. Stephen says, people are now purring about Gyökeres, but Havertz is not leaving the first team and starting lineup for years, I feel. So where does he fit in? Well, the thing about Havertz is that he's a versatile player, of course, and he can play with another centre forward. He can play in a midfield role. He can also play, if you wanted him to, in a wide position, although I'm not a big fan of that. And it means we can rotate. You know, we've got Ben White, we've got Timber. Timber can play in different positions, but ultimately I think Arsenal have brought in Calafiori for the long term being their left back. So what does that mean for Ben White? I tell you what it means. It means rotation. It doesn't mean that you can't sign someone just because you've got someone else there. So that's the answer. Ryan says, you don't understand football if you think Isak is anywhere close to Gyökeres. That classic thing. If you don't have the same opinion of me, you can't understand football. Deary, deary me. Lucas says, not sure if it's even been said, but I appreciate the fact that Tom doesn't include a photo of him overreacting in every thumbnail like every other content creator. It's a bit cringe. I tell you what, Lucas, I don't have the most expressionate face. Otherwise, I'd be all over that. I don't really think there's anything too bad about that, is there? I mean, people watch content. If you don't like it, you click on a video. If you don't like it, you don't go back. If you keep, like, you know, I think it's a little bit, what's the word? Superficial to worry about something like that. Adwait says, does Amorim go to United reduce Arsenal's chances of signing Gyökeres? Do you think United would go for him now? I have talked about this before. Of course, United have spent a lot of money on centre forwards recently. Rasmus Højlund, Joshua Zirkzee have both arrived at Man United. They've also brought in Chido Obi Martin, very young centre forward. Are they going to want to add Gyökeres to that as well, which would not only cost more money, but would block pathways, would kind of undermine some of the business that they have done recently. Watermelon says, two very different strikers. Isak's more silky. Gyökeres is everything as well, with a little more aggression and power. Isak is definitely quicker, though. Trotter says, Isak is quality, but is he for sale? Well, everybody's got a price, as they say. Everybody's got a price. Granny Pooh says, monotone, Tom. Yeah, it would be the same picture every single show. To be fair, I've done a few, I usually only put my face up on thumbnails when I'm talking about a serious topic that we've done in the past. I don't really want to put a thumbnail with kind of all the lights and colors and stuff when it is a serious topic, and I'll just put me on the screen. So it's not like we've never done it, but it's not for the clicks. It's just because I don't want to put a thumbnail on those videos because they're about important topics. So I guess in some ways you can say putting faces on thumbnails is meant to design to bring in more attention, but when I tend to not put a thumbnail on and just use a picture of me, it's because I'm talking about something rather serious and not specifically about Arsenal on the channel, which has happened in the past. We've talked about it with the abuse suffered by Declan Rice's family. We did a show on that, and I didn't put a thumbnail on that. I just put me at the start of the video as the thumbnail because it was a serious topic rather than something else. So, yes. Jasper says, back up for Odegaard of equal quality. We have never had this. If we didn't, or rather, if we did, we wouldn't have had the last month. I mean, who, Jasper? Who is that player? Who are you signing that's of equal quality to Odegaard that you can sign, that's going to be backup in the start to him? Who is that player? That is the question mark. That's the golden answer. Harry John says, I never see Tom panic when other fans are having a meltdown. I mean, I was pretty critical on Sunday when I did the reaction show to Newcastle. I was very, very critical. Some would say negative. Some did say negative, and some say they didn't want to see that type of response. But I'm not going to lie, that's how I felt. I felt horrendous after that performance. I felt betrayed in some ways by that display. It was such a lack of effort from the Arsenal team that I'd not seen in a while. And I felt so sorry for those supporters that went up to Newcastle to watch that game. So, you know, I wouldn't say I've ever lost my head, quite like you see, and a lot of it is fake. I'll be very honest with you. That's my opinion on what a lot of the outrage is. I think a lot of it is very fake that you see out there on watch-alongs and stuff like that. It is for the cameras, it's for the lights, it's for the clicks, it's for the attention. And I don't believe it for a second. I just don't. I just don't believe it. Gary says Leverkusen were awful last night. They folded after going 1-0 down. Poor mentality from their side. Dev says Arsenal always shy away from signing quality players. Why Marino and not Eze? Why not Kudus? Why Havertz instead of Gyokeres? We are tired of waiting. Spend money on quality. Players not rejected by other teams. I mean, Marino, not a player rejected by another team at all. David Raya, not a player rejected by another team at all. Kai Havertz, I know where you're coming from, but I think that there is some regret about that side of things and how he's definitely been far better for us than he was for Chelsea. Calafiori, not a reject of another team at all. Declan Rice, not a reject of another team. Urian Timber, not a reject. You know, I'm struggling here. I'm struggling with these types of hyperbole views at times. They just don't make any sense. I had someone leave a comment yesterday on the show saying, it's fine that Edu's leaving now because he doesn't do anything in mid-season. I'm like, what do you mean he doesn't do anything in mid-season? Of course he's doing stuff in mid-season. He's planning for the next windows. He's discussing contracts. He's working with the managing directors. He's obviously creating relationships abroad. He's doing work. To say that he doesn't do anything, it's like, where do people get these views from? Like, where do people get these opinions from? They are madness, absolute madness. Tar says, I've got a question. Why do you say we when it comes to something that you and your channel do? Isn't it your channel? This channel has been built by us. It's not just me that's done this, Tar. That's why I always say we. This is a community. I wouldn't be talking to the 1,000+ people on YouTube and social media that are listening right now if it wasn't for everybody that have built this channel to be what it is today. So I say we. TGT isn't me. TGT is me. It's you. It's my regular contributors. It's the regular guests. It's the people that listen. It's the people that support. It's any partners we have. It's we. That's why I always say we. You know, yes, everything I say is my personal opinion, but TGT is we always and will forever always be we. Amir Gooner says, Tom, I would never just pay any price and money. I'm more worried about this season, let alone next season. Yeah, I mean, me and you both, mate. Jonathan K says, with City looking shaky, I think we have to start taking Liverpool seriously. I mean, at no point have we not taken Liverpool seriously. They've brought in a very good manager who's inherited a brilliant squad. At what point were they not going to be taken seriously? At what point did anyone not want to take them seriously? Yes, they've lost Jurgen Klopp, who's a great coach, but he wasn't, perfect. They had several seasons where things didn't go well. Arne Slot has come off the back of course, doing a great job with Feyenoord, coming into a team with some Dutch talent in it already, like Van Dijk, like Cody Gakpo, that he's already got that connection with. And of course, already looking to galvanise a team that competed for how many successive titles. It's not like when Arteta came into Arsenal and he was met with an absolute mess of a squad that needed ripping up, that needed principles instilling in them and a new philosophy. Arne Slot's come into a ready-made, brilliant side with world-class players. So if you weren't taking Liverpool seriously at the start of the season, that's on you. You can definitely have said things like, well, they might have to go through a period of transition. We'll have to wait and see. That's fine. But the idea of writing Liverpool off at the start of the season just because they come into a new head coach would have been massively underestimating the quality that he was inheriting as a manager as well. And their start to the season has had some favourable fixtures, yes, but they've overcome some really tough games. Bayer Leverkusen are no mugs. They've come to the Emirates and got a point. They've still got to go and, of course, play against Man City. They've beaten Chelsea at home. You know, they've beaten Brighton they beat Brighton in back-to-back games. They're no mugs, you know. So that's the reality. Masood says, always a great show, Tom. I think the frustration comes from the lack of money being spent on attacking players. Look, I'd love Arsenal to go out and spend more money on attacking players. I'd love them to. I'm not going to make excuses for Arsenal having not done that, other than the fact that people do need to realise that there was restrictions in the summer, and Arsenal only brought in a significant amount of money in the last 48 hours of the window, which hopefully will give Arsenal freedom to spend. If Arsenal don't spend in January, I'll be the first one sitting here saying, that's disappointing, because you've had a net zero summer. You've brought in a lot of money for key players. You've had an opportunity to reinforce, and you've not done it. Yes, there's upheaval with Edu leaving. That doesn't stop you from signing players. That doesn't eradicate all the work on scouting. That doesn't mean that other members of the recruitment staff have left. You know, they're still there. The team behind Edu is still there. To my understanding, that hasn't changed. They're not going with Edu unless, of course, that changes in the coming days. But all that work is still there. The analysis is still there. The scouts that have been brought in are still there. There's no excuses for Arsenal not to go and find a player in January who can strengthen, because they have financial freedom to do so after making some very good sales in the summer and the previous summer as well. And Trotters, without question, Liverpool are the best team in the league right now. You know, that's evident by the fact that they sit top of the table. It's very, very obvious, and I don't think you can really argue anything other than that at this moment in time. The form team, the best team performing right now, are Liverpool. That is the reality. And until that changes, I don't expect there to be any other answers on that. Mr. Thugi says, we have a really good system. I feel like all we need is 2 or 3 elite players. I feel like I'm in deja vu. How many times have we been saying that? What I will say is, you know, for all the years that we said, I think we need 2 or 3 more elite players. For many years when we were saying those things, I think in reality, we actually needed 5 or 6 elite players. Do you know what I mean? Because I think Arsenal have added 2 or 3 elite players. Odegaard has become an elite player. Saka's become an elite player. Saliba's become an elite player. Gabriel's become an elite player. Declan Rice is an elite player. Kai Havertz can be an elite player. Ben White is an elite player. Jurrien Timber, I believe, is an elite player, and we'll see that more and more as he comes back from this injury. We've added loads of talent. Thomas Partey is and has shown to be this season an elite player. Martinelli, I think, can, but has had struggles, of course, but has performed to the levels in the past of an elite player as well. So all those years that we said we need 2 or 3 more best top players, in reality, we probably needed 5 or 6. But yes, we still do need more quality, and we need to inject that quality as soon as feasibly possible. Raya, Trotters points out, is a top goalkeeper, and that's also a very, very good point. Mark says the other in the poll only got 3%, but wouldn't you take someone like Nico Williams for a Gyokeres or Isak? And what of Kudus being available in January? I don't know about the Kudus thing. He's about to receive quite a hefty ban from the sounds of things from what being reported. So it's more of a versatile attacking player. Don't get me wrong. I think he's a great player, and I think I would be open to the signing of him. 62% of you saying Gyokeres at the moment, 33% saying Isak, 5% saying other right now. So yeah, there we go. Just scrolling up and seeing if I've missed any responses in the chat so far. Seems SJ's gone very quiet. It's a shame. SJ, please do drop me a DM. You made some pretty heavy claims and have not made up on them. So please do send me that message. Brett says, let's see how we will be without Rice. Arteta will have no choice and play Partey in midfield, not right back. We will see if we are better without Rice, as some seem to think. Don't get me wrong. If we have a great performance tonight and Partey plays DM, it doesn't mean that we aren't good without Rice. It doesn't mean that Rice is obsolete. It just means that we've got really good depth in midfield, and Partey is obviously still a very good player. I don't get it twisted. Football, for some, is made out to be so binary when it really, really isn't. It really is not. Amara says, Tom, why can't our fan base realise that we need the right players, not just back page players? Of course, you know, you want to see headlines, you want to see big profiles, but they have to be the right players too. And Arsenal don't sign for the sake of signing players. They just don't. So let's wait and see. Andrea says, I'd take Sesko at the moment. His ceiling is far higher. I mean, if his ceiling is higher than Gyokeres, What you're suggesting is you've got a player there that's going to score 50 goals in a season, 40 goals at least in a season. And so far, I've not seen enough of Sesko to suggest that's going to be the case. I've not seen enough from Sesko to suggest that's going to be the case. So, yeah. Trotter says, so you're saying Arsenal are in fifth place, are the fifth best team in the league right now? In terms of form, yes, of course, because that's what they're on. Right now, in terms of form, Arsenal are the fifth best team in the league because that's where they sit. Nottingham Forest have been better than us this season. That can't be argued. That's just where things are. If you're talking about in a bigger context, in terms of how good a club is, of course, that's a different conversation. But Liverpool are the best team in the league right now because they're top. That's how it works. That's just how it works. If you want to talk about who the best teams are in general, that's a different conversation. But if you're talking about who, as of this moment, going into any game, has the best chance of winning a fixture, it's Liverpool right now because they sit top of the table and their record in the league have proven that. And the team, Forest, sitting in third, have beaten that team at Anfield this season. So, of course, that's how form works. That's how the table is. They're two different conversations. When it gets to May, we'll have a very, very different picture of what we do right now. Maybe we won't for some positions, but I expect there to be a very, very different look come May for how the table is going to look. Mark says, we seem to lack moments players who can get us a goal, and we need it for kind of a tie or to win a close match because lots of our matches seem close. Of course, Saka, I think, is one of those players. I think Odegaard has got the potential to be one of those players. I think Havertz has popped up in big games. Think about his goals, against PSG, at Spurs, at Manchester United. I think Waneri has got the talent to maybe be one of those players in the future. It's very difficult to see that right now. So, yeah, let's wait and see. Trotter says Forest won't finish third. I don't think they will either. But that's where they are right now. So far this season, they've been the third best team because they sit third. That's how it works. It's not too difficult to quite get. Oliver says, do you think Jesus will leave in the summer, and how much do you think? I thought he might leave last summer, and he's still here. So it leans into me thinking, yes, I think he'll probably go next summer as well. Amaro Gooner says, Tom, I'll be interested if Liverpool don't win the league if they're called bottlers. Yeah, I mean, it's November. So, yeah, let's wait and see. Rob says, I disagree. Need to take fixtures into account and red cards when deciding the best team. It's just the best team right now. Liverpool have been better than us. And Forest have been better than us. Right now, they have. That's just the reality. They've been better than us. They sit higher than us in the table. You got to be magnanimous. It's not a slight on us. It's not an insult on us. It's just a reality. It's just a reality. If you want to talk about who are the best general team in the world because of what they've won, of course, it'd be Real Madrid. Right now, this season, Real Madrid have not been the best team in the world. They sit very far down the table. They've been battered at home by Barcelona. They've been battered at home by AC Milan. They are not the best team in the world right now. But if you want a general conversation about who the best team in the world is, of course, you would turn around and say Real Madrid because of what they've won. They're two very different conversations. Don't conflate the two. Very, very important not to do that. Anyway, that brings us to an end of today's show. We did all that. We didn't even talk about the election. I mean, that is very, 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 very good, astute football chat. I hope it's given you something of an escape from the madness that we see on a day-to-day basis. Thank you, as always, for tuning in. Do drop a like on the video and subscribe to the channel if you are new around here with those notifications turned on so you never miss a show. Have a fantastic rest of your day. Hope you enjoy the game. Hope we enjoy the game. And I really hope that sincerely we can get a significant win in one of the toughest places to go in world football. Stay safe, stay well, stay happy and respectful. And as always, up the Arsenal.